Every day, United Way of Greater Nashville brings our community together so every child, individual, and family in Middle Tennessee can thrive. Right now, 1.2 million Tennessee households are working hard but still struggling to make ends meet. Nearly half of Davidson County families and a third in Williamson County live below the ALICE threshold. That's asset limited, income constrained, and employed. But did you know that last year alone, United Way partners helped meet nearly 500,000 basic needs across Middle Tennessee? That means thousands of Davidson County students started school with supplies this fall. And kids in Williamson County get free books each month, all thanks to the United Way and its supporters. Your workplace can be a part of supporting the United Way's vital work today, because when employees give together, morale grows, businesses thrive, and Greater Nashville becomes stronger. Learn how your workplace can help at unitedwaygreaternashville.org/workplace-campaigns. Together, we're lifting up Middle Tennessee, meeting needs today and building stronger communities for tomorrow. You're getting married, not managing an event team. At Simply Eloped, your dedicated planner takes care of every single detail so you don't have to. They have helped over 14,000 couples say I do across 37 epic U.S. locations, with all-inclusive packages and top-tier vendors. From snowy mountaintops to sandy beaches at sunset, every wedding is customized, no two are alike. Start your big day at simplyeloped.com. Today on CityCast Nashville, we're continuing our series looking at alternative solutions to our affordable housing crisis. At Trinity Community Commons, they're using their property to build permanent housing for families who've been living without it. I'm joined today by their executive director, Zach Likens, and India Pungarcher from Open Table Nashville to talk about how faith, food, and community are shaping a new vision for East Nashville and what radical hospitality looks like in practice. It's Monday, November 17th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Zach, what is radical hospitality?
Radical hospitality is welcoming the stranger. It's welcoming friends and neighbors into friend and family style relationships so that they feel they belong, so that they're active participants in the community and civic life together.
So how does radical hospitality shape what you're doing right now at Trinity Community Commons?
Yeah, so ever since Trinity Community Commons was started in 2013 in a less than active church property, the founder always had this idea that everyone has worth, everyone has dignity and potential. And he showed that by opening up the doors and letting everyone in, regardless of who they were, of their background. And that opening of the doors and letting everyone in to participate together kind of set the tone and the culture for our organization. We want to host events and do things that include everyone as an equal, whether it's our meal service or our markets or other activities, and show them that like you belong here and you matter, not just as a recipient of aid, but also as like a participant and a co-creator and a contributor to this community. Like we need you, you're an important part of this, and we want your gifts and your talents here in this neighborhood.
For folks who are not familiar, where is Trinity and what's the property like right now?
Yeah, so Trinity Community Commons is a neighborhood nonprofit located in East Nashville in the Highland Heights neighborhood at the corner of Trinity Lane and Meridian. It's an old Methodist church property. So if you've driven by, you've seen it. And the property is beautiful. It's historic. But a couple of years ago, the sanctuary was damaged in a small fire. And so most of the property can't actually be used. There's really 3 structures on the property, and we can really only use a little bit of the fellowship hall and the front lawn because of that fire a couple of years ago. And that was kind of one of the forcing functions that pushed us to know, like, we need to reimagine what we're doing. We need to redevelop this property and rethink how we show radical hospitality into the future.
Well, so India, how did you get involved?
Yeah, so I actually started as a neighbor. I lived nearby in East Nashville and had heard about Trinity, particularly the community dinners that we have every Tuesday. And I started coming as a neighbor around the same time that another organization that I work for that y'all have had on before, Open Table Nashville, was starting to have a more formal partnership with Trinity. And right away, I knew that Trinity was a really special place and just aligned personally in terms of a lot of values. And I felt like Trinity was a really special place where anyone could come, and not only could they receive items or receive a dinner or receive a meal, but they could also contribute. And that looks and means different things to people. And I think about a quote that a neighbor just said recently, who it is a neighbor that is currently living in her car, and she wanted to help serve food and help volunteer. And she said that she could not find a single other place in the city that, because she was homeless, she could volunteer at. And she said that Trinity was one of the first places where she felt like she could just, quote, be normal and just have, a normal evening, in her words. And so that, I think, really embodies Trinity and is what has kept me around.
There are lots of ways to efficiently distribute aid and give away free stuff or give away important things. And that's certainly necessary. There are a lot of our neighbors living in poverty who need material things, who need food. But there's also this incredible deep sense of belonging, of recognition, of dignity that is missing, and that oftentimes we, in our haste to give aid or to help, we miss the chance to see and recognize someone as, you're a neighbor, you're a human being, you have this whole life story, and this is an opportunity for me to get to know you. And that changes people's perceptions of poverty, that changes people's perceptions of our city and who it's built for and who it's not. And so I think that's really the most important part, is like, do we give ourselves, do we create spaces where there are opportunities to recognize the shared humanity in our neighbors that change the way we ourselves then go and live the rest of our lives?
So when did you both realize that Trinity had to take action on housing as part of its mission?
I can remember a few really galvanizing moments for me. I've been involved as a volunteer for a long time. And during dinners, we would always ask neighbors, what do you need? What can we create together? Because we always wanted to base what we did in the strengths and skills of the neighborhood. And over time, the answers just got to be so consistent. Neighbors just kept telling us, we need a place to live. We don't have stable housing. We don't have any housing. We're staying in our car. And the more people asked for a place to live, for housing, the more I started to learn about not only their experience, but also the experience of living and trying to find housing in Nashville. And I was invited to a policy forum hosted by Think Tennessee. And they published this incredible data about the lack of space, of physical land to build affordable housing. And they said there just isn't enough of it unless we change our zoning regulations. However, church properties, faith-based properties, the kind of property that we as a nonprofit own, have a unique opportunity to build housing where it's illegal in other places to build this kind of affordable housing. They can say, hey, according to our beliefs, to love our neighbors or to care for the poor, we think the best way to live into our religious values is to build affordable housing. And so I realized, wait, neighbors are telling us what they need. And we also have this gift, this resource that we're supposed to use for their good and their potential. This just fits. This makes sense. So that was kind of the moment back in 2023 that we realized this is the right thing to do.
So let's get into it. What are you building?
The journey from there, it took a long time. We found some incredible partners. We found a co-developer in Nelson Community Partners who have actually been on this journey before. We've never developed housing, so we needed to find a trusted partner who was really good at this. And they have an incredible track record of co-developing and building affordable housing, not just in Nashville. And then they partnered alongside us and have helped us find a lot of the big chunks of funding that we've needed to actually get this thing moving. We also needed to find a partner to help us support neighbors moving into housing. It's one thing to build housing. It's another thing to support neighbors in it. And we found a great partner in Safe Haven Family Shelter. And so together with those organizations, we're building 22 homes for families. So that's 22 apartment and townhome style homes for families. That's 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom homes. And so we're actively in the middle of the design phase. And also they'll include permanent supportive wraparound services that Safe Haven Family Shelter will provide. And so what I'm really excited about is not just that we're adding 22 homes for families, we're getting 22 new families into the neighborhood. That's incredible, but they get to be included in this community resource center, this community gathering space that we're building together. And they get to both be supported by that, but they also get to become contributors to that.
We did an episode earlier this year on the cottages at Drake's Creek, where they're working on a co-op approach to affordable housing, emphasizing community. What's the difference between that and the community-based permanent supportive housing that you're building?
I loved that episode. And there are a lot of things I really like about that model. And the things that are different in their model, there's ownership of those units and there is shared decision making about how they shape their space. In our model, the thing that's different is that these will be rental units. They'll be more affordable by contrast. You could stay in them forever. They're not transitional, they're permanent. So you could stay here as long as you want. You could move out to something else if you wanted to. This will be for families who have either experienced homelessness or are really struggling to find homes. So we're really looking to support families that have found that transition into housing difficult. And then we'll also combine it with like an active nonprofit providing community connection, programming services in Trinity Community Commons. And not just us, one of our roles on the property with the project is to partner with, as we do today, lots of other great nonprofits like Open Table Nashville, like the Community Resource Center of Middle Tennessee, like the Nashville Food Project, because we want this space to be really, really active with all the great and talented nonprofit partners and neighbors who do great work and support neighbors in different ways. So we're going to be bringing into this space a lot of different service providers for like job training, for health and wellness classes, for childcare, for lots of different things that support families together.
And I'll just chime in. We were talking before this that it feels like, not just here in Nashville, but like across the country, we know how to move people into permanent housing. But like what comes after that, right? Like we can move people into an apartment, get them their keys, but then there's something missing. And I think that there's this emerging conversation of the thing that is missing is this sustainable and holistic approach, right? And I think that is why I think Trinity is really exciting, because we already have this intentional community that really loves on our neighbors, and that community is going to stay there and be there when these homes are done being built. It's not just putting folks into a cement box and closing the door, right? There's going to be events, there's going to be neighbors that you can share things with and get to know each other and really be welcomed into the community.
Can you give an example of how a permanent supportive housing model could help an individual?
So a permanent supportive housing model includes not just the actual unit or form of housing that someone's moving into, but those wraparound services that not all, but a lot of people do need a little extra support in order to stabilize and maintain their housing, especially, right after they move into housing. So that can look like, a caseworker helping them get or stay connected to resources for food, like food stamps. That could be help finding jobs. That could be help figuring out childcare, all of those complicated things that take time and resources and are really a full-time job to navigate in the city. Those are things that a caseworker could help a family navigate.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane C. Hu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text them yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
Well, so Zach, do you have a background in housing development?
No, I don't. My background is in healthcare, specifically healthcare technology. When we landed on this as a vision, and I was introduced to Kelsey Wilson of Nelson Community Partners, and they met with me, and over the course of a couple of weeks, we talked, we traded some information. They loved the mission, they loved the idea, and they said, and we think you have we think this is possible. We think you can do this, and here's how. Currently, we have funding through the Barnes Housing Trust Fund, through MDHA, and also through low-income housing tax credits through the Tennessee Housing Development Agency. Those are never things I could have figured out how to do on my own. It would have taken me years to understand how those work and to figure it out. So if somebody is listening to this and they are part of a church or part of another community group, and they're figuring out like, how could we have land or we have a faith-based property, how could we do this? I would want to introduce you to Mick and Kelsey, but I'd also just want to say generally, find a great co-developer. There are lots of creative ways to fund and build affordable housing on your property. Ours isn't the only way. It just happens to have worked for us. There are lots of great resources and partners you could work with to get this done.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but it being a faith-based property, how does the zoning work for a project like this? I'm in the neighborhood too. And so I see, we just had 4 new tall and skinnies just around the corner come up. So how is the zoning different?
For Trinity, for the site that we're on, our site is actually currently zoned commercial service. And under the adaptive residential provision of the Metro Code, residential uses are permitted. So we didn't have to go through a rezoning. The one thing I'll say on zoning, we were really fortunate to have that commercial service designation. It is incredibly confusing, and it was really tough for me at first. I spent a lot of months just churning on what can we build, what's possible. I don't understand all these overlays. And there actually was a group early on, Hawkins Partners, a landscape architect firm, that knew the nonprofit historically. And I went up to them at a conference and asked for some help. And they worked with me to help me understand what was possible on our property.
I think that's a really important point. Like Zach, just had this kind of call, right, to faith communities, and they are in a unique position. We know that faith communities across the city own land all over Nashville. And so maybe they are zoned favorably already, and there isn't that hurdle in order to build affordable housing. And so I think that's another kind of next conversation that we're moving into, right, is how can we use this land or these physical church buildings in a way that benefits everyone and is actually putting them to use. And you don't have to be a, quote, affordable housing developer, what does that term mean, right? You can be a person that has these resources, whether they're tangible or also just, your commitment to figuring it out. Like, we need more people to use the resources that they do have and enter this space in order to even try to solve our housing crisis here.
How are you identifying the neighbors you want to serve with this project?
So specifically the housing development project, that is going to be identifying families that are exiting homelessness, and we'll be getting referrals through Safe Haven. And to just touch on that need a little bit, I remember a family that would come to dinners on Tuesdays and their kids asked for, some coloring materials to, color and draw. And they had left what they made behind at the end of the dinner. And the kids were living in their car. They were on waiting lists, working to get into some transitional options and eventually permanent options. But the signs that they had colored were literally signs asking for money. The signs that they made, there was, drawings on them, but it was like, homeless family, anything helps, like, can you give $1? And that's what they left behind. And I was trying to conceptualize, could I envision myself as a kid doing that and like knowing to do that, or just that was, that's just what I'm going to color, right? As like an elementary school kid. That drawing is something that I think about a lot. How deep we are in this crisis in Nashville. That was one family with 2 kids, right? But we pulled some data from, shout out to the HERO program and Catherine Knowles through the MMPS school district. At the end of the last school year, there were just over 3,400 students in the MMPS school district that experienced homelessness at some point during the school year. 3,400 kids at some point, right? And those are just the kids that we know of, right? That like a teacher, learned some information, or somehow we were able to identify that, yes, they were experiencing homelessness. And so I think that number is just mind-boggling. Like, could you imagine if all of those kids were together at one point, right? 3,400 kids that don't have like an indoor location or maybe sleeping in a motel. That number just is insane to me. And that actually also was a decrease from the year before, and not because fewer kids are experiencing homelessness in our school district, but because a lot of families are being pushed out of the school district. So they're having to go to other school districts because they can't afford to live in Nashville or to even be homeless in Nashville. Those numbers are really staggering. And and yes, just speak to the need, and particularly the need for apartment sizes that can accommodate families with children in order to get them out of homelessness.
Well, so how does this project change what you're doing right now at Trinity Commons? You sent over the plans and it looks like you're tearing down part of the existing church structure to create room for the housing units. Will that impact your current programming, Zach?
It makes it better and deeper. If our mission is radical hospitality, is welcoming people into community, today we can only do that in part. We can host you in an event and you can be a volunteer, you can be a neighbor, you can be a participant, but at the end of the night, a lot of our neighbors are going home and they're sleeping in tents. They're sleeping in cars. What we get to do is we get to deepen our commitment to hospitality. We get to deepen our commitment to welcoming people into community. And so physically what it does to the property is like, yes, we are demolishing 2 of the 3 structures and we're rehabilitating one of them to be like a new and improved community resource space. It'll have a better kitchen. It'll be more accessible. It'll just function a ton better for the community. We'll get to keep and move a lot of our community garden and outdoor space. And we'll get to add those 22 homes. And I think while it does change the physical space and the organization is sited at a physical location, I think the most important thing about our programming or how it changes what we do is that the most important part about what we're doing has very little to do with like the physical space. It's an enabler. But what I want people to know is that whether you're involved in Trinity as a volunteer, as a neighbor, as a donor, as a supporter, what Trinity Community Commons is about creating spaces for neighbors to welcome each other into those family style relationships. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that in your home. You can do that in a public park. You can do that at your job. We want this to be a space that's kind of like a training ground where you get to come and be a part of these community events and be a part of community life here and have it shape the way you do the rest of your life. So to me, it gives every neighbor, the ones that we're housing, the families that we're housing, but also the families and the neighbors who are participating in other events, we want them to see, wow, there is so much potential for us as a community to create more accessible places for people to be welcomed, to live, to participate in life. And it also, I hope, shows people that even though there's lots of frustrating stuff around us, India just shared stats about the need, like the number of families experiencing homelessness. It is easy to get overwhelmed with those. It is easy to hear those and feel defeated because I can't change that. I can't fix that state level policy. I can't change that rule or that law. But I do want neighbors to know that every neighbor is uniquely equipped with a set of skills and gifts and resources that can radically impact their neighbors' lives for good. And at Trinity, you get to practice that and you get to see that it's possible. And then you get to go back to your own life and say, what else do I have that I could share to improve the lives of my neighbor?
Making me feel real good, y'all. This is a good thing in here in Nashville. Now, Zach, this may be a personal question for you, but how does your religious faith play into everything you're doing at Trinity right now?
It absolutely shapes it. And so one thing I want to clarify is that Trinity Community Commons it's a nonprofit. It is not a church. It was formed by the Methodist Church in a church building. That church is now closed. We operate out of it. So I do want that to be clear that Trinity Community Commons, the nonprofit, is actually led by a community of neighbors across lots of different faith backgrounds. Everyone's welcome here. We value everyone. And I think we as a community are much stronger because all of those beliefs and backgrounds are present. When I think about how my faith shapes this work, Jesus taught lots of different things while he was on earth. He taught us to love our neighbor, to welcome the stranger, to put others' needs before our own. But he also lived that. He practiced that. He himself, as I believe him, was with God in a wonderful world of peace and justice in heaven. And he saw his people on earth and said, I want to draw them into relationship with me. I want to repair the tear in our relationship. And he gave up a lot of his safety and security in heaven. And he came to earth and he said, hey, I'm going to do life with you. I'm going to live with you and spend time with you so that together we can have a more joyful relationship and existence, so that I can draw you to me. And so he showed in his life and his work that love is generous and sacrificial and joyful, and that the most important thing in life are people. He was constantly welcoming outsiders. He was constantly going to people that the rest of society looked at and said, no, we don't talk to them. We don't include them. And he said, I reject that wholeheartedly. I welcome that person. I welcome the outsider. They have a place at my table So seeing his life, seeing his example, seeing his call to people who follow his way to like go and do likewise. I want you to go and love your neighbor the same way that I've shown you, the same way that I've taught you. And I love that we get to practice that some here at Trinity Community Commons.
India, what are your thoughts on the connection between religious faith and serving our neighbors? I know that Open Table isn't faith-based, but you still feel called.
Yeah, I mean, Open Table Nashville specifically started off as an interfaith org. So I think that some of those same ideas definitely are embodied at Trinity, right? That Zach was explaining, where it's people from all faiths and also no faiths. But I think that religion aside, on Tuesday nights, there's something deeply spiritual and holy about sharing a meal with our neighbors that is really hard to find in the city. And I think that increasingly, there's so many horrible things and just chaos going on in our world and in our city, especially lately, and everyone is craving that human connection or that something, that, you can't fully describe, right? And I think of last Tuesday where it was a beautiful evening. We were outside, sharing a meal together. We had music on. There were new neighbors showing up. New neighbors brought meals. We kind of is semi-potluck style. And, I had a neighbor who's experiencing homelessness who brought me a gift, remembered something I talked about my niece. She's obsessed with axolotls, really random. And she remembered that. And she brought me an axolotl stuffed animal for my niece, who doesn't even live in this state, by the way. And so I think just those little moments that give you goosebumps and truly are spiritual in a non-religious way, but just, reminding us what really matters and connecting us with each other as human beings. That is something that happens at Trinity and is fostered there. And, words don't do it justice. You just really have to come out on a Tuesday night and break bread with people and meet your neighbors.
Well, listeners at home, please join us at the table. If you'd like to donate to Trinity Community Commons to help them build 22 units of permanent supportive housing or learn more about the work that they do, you can visit trinitycommunitycommons.org. And Zach, India, as someone who lives right around the corner, I can't wait to welcome my new neighbors. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on Tuesday night.
See you there soon.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Toodles!